Today we are going to solve systems of equations by elimination. And this is a great method when x's and y's are lined up. See, here we have x's and y's lined up. And the reason is that we are going to add the two equations together. So if you look at this, we can actually add these two equations as they are right now together. And the whole idea is to cancel out one of the unknowns. And you see, if I add these two together, the negative x plus the x makes 0. These cancel out. And all I'm left with is a negative 4y equals negative 4. And then from there, it's just a one-step equation. I just have to divide by that negative 4, and we've got our value of y. So this problem seemed like it went really fast, and it did, because we were able to cancel out two unknowns, one from each equation, in one step. So y is 1. Well, we're still not done. We still need to find out what x is. And so it still requires a substitution. So what we're going to do is take this 1, and now we have to put it in place of one of the y's in the equations above. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to pick this one right here. So I've got a negative x plus y, but in place of y, I'm putting 1, and this all equals 5. Well, from that point, we have to just move this 1 over, subtract 1 from both sides, and then we have to get rid of that negative sign out in front of x. So now I have negative x equals 4. So I can get rid of that negative sign just by doing one opposite operation. So I'm going to divide by negative 1. And then I've got it. I've got x by itself. And so now we've got x, we've got y, we've got our answer. So x is negative 4. And so we write the answers in ordered pair, and it goes negative 4, comma 1. So the elimination method is kind of a preferred method. The only time I don't use it is when my y's and x's aren't lined up, and maybe x or y is all by itself. Then I would go with the substitution method. Well, here's another problem. This one requires a little bit more work than the last problem because I can't just add these two equations together to cancel out either the x's or the y's. I need to modify one of the equations. I'm going to choose to use the first equation and modify that. Now I'm going to make it so the x's cancel out. So I'm going to multiply by a negative 1. But I have to multiply every number in that equation by negative 1. When I do so, I've got a new equation that I'll write down below. It's negative 5x minus y equals 0. 0 times negative 1 is still just 0. Well, from this point, we can go ahead and add these two equations together. So I'm looking at just the second one here and this modified one. These x's cancel out. They make 0. They're gone. And so all I'm left with is that y term. And actually what's nice about this one, 2y minus y just makes y. And this all equals 30. And so from there, I've got my y value. All I need to do now is find x. So what I'm going to do is take this 30 and put it in place of one of these y's in one of these equations. I'm going to pick this first equation before I modified it. So let me go ahead and rewrite it. It's 5x plus y, but in place of y, I'm putting 30 equals 0. So from that point, I can just do one opposite operation here. I can subtract that 30 from both sides. And once I do that, I've just about got x by itself. I just need to divide by the coefficient of x. So 5x equals negative 30. As I said before, we'll just divide by that 5, and we've got x isolated. So now x equals negative 6. So we've got our two numbers. We've got the y, we've got the x. We can write the answer as an ordered pair. Negative 6, comma 30. Well, we've got two more examples here. It's another example where we have to do some extra work to get to either cancel out the x's or the y's. Now, as I look at it, I've got a choice. I could either multiply, to cancel out the y's, I can either multiply this top one by maybe like a -3, and that would cancel out the y's here, because one would be a -3y and one would be a +3. Or I can multiply the bottom one by 2. It doesn't really matter. Either way will get you the same answer at the end. I'm going to go with the first option here. I'm going to multiply this one by -3. So every number there gets multiplied by -3. And that's the part people mess up on, is not multiplying every number by the negative. 3 in this case. And you really got to be careful on signs here. This is -6x when I multiply the -3 by 2x, -3y, and a -9. I'm going to add these numbers together because I've got x's and y's and constants lined up. So as I add this, I get the y's to cancel. So now those are gone. I've still got now a -7x equaling, and then add these together, I get -21. So now I can do another opposite operation. I can cancel out this -7 by dividing by -7 on both sides. And then from there, we'll have the value of x. So x ends up equaling 3. Well, one more step. We just need to substitute that 3 back into one of those equations. I'm going to pick this top one again before I modified it. So let's rewrite what we've got there. That equation is 2x plus y equals 3. That was that original equation. So I'm going to put this 3 in place of that x right there. So now it would be 2 times by 3 plus y equals 3. So I go ahead and do that 2 times 3, and that gives me 6. So now I have 6 plus y equals 3. So just one step there. Just got to move that 6 back to the other side. So I'm going to subtract that 6 from both sides. And when I do that, I have more negatives than positives. So the y value is going to equal -3. So now we've got x is 3 and y is -3. So that answer is 3, -3. And there it is. Well, let's take a look at the last problem here. This one requires both equations to be modified. And the reason is, if we look at it, x's, you can't multiply 7 by something to make 5 or 12 by something to make 8. And we don't want to deal with fractions, so let's go ahead and look at the y's. Now, the reason I'm looking at y's is I see 12 and 8. There is a multiple that's not too much bigger than these numbers that I can use. And that multiple is 24. So I am going to multiply this equation by some number to make 12 24. And that's going to be 2. I'm going to multiply that by 2. So every number there gets multiplied by 2. Now, I need to multiply this equation by some number that makes this one a positive 24. See, this one's going to be a -24 here. And I want this to be positive, so I'm going to go with a -3. So every number there gets multiplied by -3. So let's see what's left over. Top equation. We'll rewrite right here. So this is going to become a 14x minus 24y equals -44. That's what I get when I multiply that top one by 2. Bottom one by -3. Let's see what we get. -15x positive 24y equals, and multiplying this, that makes a 42, and it's a positive 42. Well, we're ready to add this stuff together. What's nice about this one is once we cancel out these y's, we've almost solved the problem. I got -x equals -2. If I'd only switched the signs here and done a -2 and a -3, I would have had the right answer right away. Oh well, we'll try that next time. But anyhow, I've got one step left here, and I just need to get rid of that negative sign. So I'm going to divide by a -1. And when I do that, x is going to equal positive 2. So that's the x value. X equals 2. How do we find out what y is? Well, it's just a substitution problem. You've got a choice. And this is what makes elimination a little bit tougher, is that we don't have the variable solved for. So we have to do some extra work. So you just go through and just pick a number. I'm going to pick this second equation before we modified it. And I'm going to substitute that x in for x. So it was 5x minus 8y equals negative 14. So I'm putting this 2 in place of that x. So I'll go ahead and rewrite it up here. We've got 5 times by 2 minus 8y equals negative 14. So I go ahead and do that work there. 5 and 2 multiply to make 10 minus 8y equals negative 14. And then I can go ahead and do another opposite operation. See, I need to subtract the 10 now from both sides. And when I do that, they're the same sign there, so I get to add those two numbers together. So here I'm left with a negative 8y equals negative 24. Well, all I have to do now is divide by that negative 8, and we'll have our answer. And just so happens the two negatives cancel out, and 8 goes into 24 3 times. So y equals 3. So there's our answer. X was 2, y was 3. We've got our solution. So that's called the elimination method. It's a lot nicer. It makes the problems go a lot faster. The only tough part is the substitution. The next step, once you find the first variable, the substitution on finding the second variable sometimes takes a little bit longer, like letter D did. Next part is going to be 2 word problems that we can use to elimination to solve those systems, but first have to write them. So check out part 2 for the word problems.